Welcome to week 6 of TD Culture Lab Artrepreneur 101. Tonight, we are learning about social media and graphic design basics. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sabrina Cunha, and I am the multimedia designer at Mississauga Arts Council. I've been in this role for 5 years, and my main duties are social media and design, so it's exciting to be talking to you about that today. This webinar is part of our TD Culture Lab Professional Development webinar series presented by MAC in partnership with TD Bank Group. About us, the Mississauga Arts Council is a registered charity dedicated to fostering the growth of the arts sector by cultivating creative opportunities and connections between artists and residents of Mississauga and beyond. MAC is dedicated to providing service-based programming to artists, funding artist-led programs, and growing awareness of the arts to build a vibrant and thriving cultural community. The Mississauga Arts Council acknowledges that the land on which we gather is part of the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Huron-Wendat, and Wyandot Nations. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land and give our respect to these peoples and their ancestors who have been inhabitants and caretakers of this land since time immemorial. We also recognize that Mississauga is now home to many global Indigenous peoples. All right. Let's get started and learn about social media and graphic design basics. So for tonight's agenda, we're going to do a introduction. We've already done that. Why does social media and design matter for artists? I'm going to go through some basic design principles, a little bit about kind of print versus digital and kind of the nitty-gritty things. Not too much of that. What to include in your designs, and then on the social media aspect, where should we be posting? How often? What kinds of content? A little bit on writing captions and the importance of accessibility, and a little bit of a kind of, tips and tricks on how to make your posts accessible. All right, so social media and design basics. Why does this matter? As an artist, or of any kind, you're looking for kind of visibility, you're looking for communication, and you're looking for connection with audiences. So whether it's good design work or good social media, you want your work to stand out. Everyone's scrolling all the time nowadays. There's messages and media constantly bombarding you. So you want your work to stand out, to be authentic, to be different than other things that people are seeing, and communicate your message. What are you trying to say as an artist? What do you want people to know about you? Is it, sharing your music? Is it showing off your visual artwork? Is it booking gigs? And connection. Social media ultimately helps you build relationships. You might already have an audience on social media or a group of, close collaborators, people that are doing things with you right now. So how do you reach out to those people and keep those connections up and grow your audience? So we're going to start with design first, which makes me excited. And we're going to get into kind of the basics of design. If you're a visual artist, some of this stuff might be familiar to you, but if you are not, then you're welcome. So to start off, hierarchy, typically in designs, the biggest thing is the most important. You want to guide the viewer's eye with what you're looking at. So even in these posters, for example, you have a big illustration that's guiding the eye, but you also have this text that's kind of anchoring with alignment. You want to keep things lined up. Clean layouts are the easiest to read and they're polished. You don't want viewers to be kind of confused or not sure of what they're looking at. Contrast. If you have something dark text, for example, you want it on a light background. If you have something light, you want it on a dark background so that you can see whatever it is. Typically, this is text, but it could be icons or photos, anything of that nature. Spacing. You want to give everything on your page room to breathe. For example, this page doesn't have too much white space, but you still have space around. Because if you didn't, you'd have all of these things bunched up and you wouldn't be able to decipher things and read things, and you're looking at too many things. You want to give everything a little bit of room to breathe. Fonts. Simple is usually best for font choices. Use no more than two, maybe three, maybe, but typically you want one or two. And you can use the different weights of those fonts. I have here, for example, this one's a little bit bigger, this one's a little thinner, but you don't want more than that. You want to avoid anything script or decorative for key information. For a title, that's fine. But if you want people to really read what you're saying, you want them to be able to physically read it. And script and decorative fonts kind of cause problems. What to include? I've kind of disseminated all of this into what we typically see at Mac for our artists. Typically, our artists are um, showing off a project that they're doing. They have an event that they want to showcase. They have a music project that's out. So you kind of want to cover the who, what, where, when, why. So you want to say what the event is, what's the title, what's the project? Is it a launch? Is it a performance? Is it an album release? You want to say who's in it or who it's by. So you want your name on there or the presenter, the handles of the artists involved, that kind of thing. You want when and where, obviously. You want your date, your time, your venue, or whatever online if it's digital. You want a call to action. It's so important to have a uh, place to take people after they've looked at your thing. I'll also get into this with the social media captions as well, but you want people to have an action, RSVP, visit a gallery, link in bio, watch it on YouTube. You want a contact info or a link. This could be a website, a QR code, an Instagram handle, a clear way that people can follow up with you on the project, whatever it is. A note on QR codes. Um, don't put QR codes on things that will primarily be on a screen unless you know it's going to be big screen signage. Because if you think about it, you're going to be using your phone to scan that thing. And if it's already on your screen, yes, you might be able to screenshot it and put it into an app or do something with it that gets that link to come up for you. But it's a lot easier to have that QR code on a physical thing or a big sign that someone would be scanning rather than on like a social media graphic, for example. And lastly, this is important if you have funders or venues involved. Make sure you include their logos, their credits. If you are unsure of what logos you should include, and you have community partners and you have funders, reach out to them. Ask them what they would like to be, considered as, whether it's in writing, whether it's with a logo. Essentially, you don't want anyone looking at your graphic to be this confused lady. Okay. um, I won't get too much into digital versus print, but I'll leave this for you as a resource. To narrow it down, essentially, color with digital is coming through light. So if you're to take all of the colors of this rainbow here and add them together, you would get white on a screen. Whereas with print, you're getting physical ink. And if you were to take all of these colors, you would get something dark. So what does this mean for your design work? You cannot expect things that are made digitally to look the same, just simply based on the nature of something being on a screen and something being printed. I've also included a little bit on like resolutions and sizing here if you need or have any questions about what kind of file formats you should be using for digital versus print, sizing and all that. But I will move on to social media. So before you even start posting on social media, I kind of want you to either do an audit of what your current social media looks like or ask yourself who you want to reach. Because you want to know who your audience is in order to target your things for that audience, whether it's the fans of yours, collaborators, presenters, funders, community members. Where do those people spend time? Are they a younger person? Are they an older person? Are they on Instagram? Are they on TikTok, Facebook? Or are they someone that is not actually on those things? Are they someone that you want to reach out with in-person events? Is it a senior? Is it a child? Are you reaching out to their parents versus themselves, or in the case of a senior, are you reaching out to caretakers? So what does this audience member want to see from you? Do they want to see your work? Do they want your story, your process? I will say that in most cases, for all audiences, people like to see authentic content. They like to see your personality. They'd like to see you doing what you do best, being relatable, showing off your story. And how do they engage? A note on engagement in general and likes and shares and comments. Most of the people that are looking at social media are very passive. They're scrolling. Even if they're maybe interested in something, they might watch and not even interact. If you have 100 followers, let's say 20 of those people are actively engaging with your work. But keep that in mind, right? If you have a smaller group of kind of friends and family on your social media right now, you might actually have better engagement because they know you personally and would be commenting and liking and sharing because they're so excited for you. So if that's your starting point, that's not a bad place to start. But if you're trying to transition that audience, then kind of look into, how they like to engage and kind of what you want them to be doing with your work. The more you understand your audience, as I said, the better you can tailor your content for them. All right. So this is a question that I think people get a lot or ask a lot on where is best to post. Should I be posting on every single platform? TikTok is huge. Should I take everything that I've been doing and move it onto TikTok? Not necessarily. I won't go through this whole chart in detail, but essentially stick to the platforms that you're already using, number one, that you're already comfortable with, um, and try to cater your content to the people on those platforms. So for Instagram, it's kind of a little bit more general now, but typically younger people like to see visuals. Short form content is good kind of across all of these platforms now. But if that's not your thing, don't feel like you have to do it just because it does work well. If you are someone that is already comfortable with making short form content, sure, give it a try. But essentially, from this chart, it's know who you're trying to reach and do your best to make content for that audience. And if you want to, get into kind of examples of that, like I'm a musician and I make this kind of music and I want to reach these kind of people, then you can let me know in the chat and we could kind of go through that as an example. I will say, as an important note, I'll highlight this part and I'll also highlight website link in bio. So for Facebook, this is from a my perspective of trying to tag artists on social media. Do not use your personal Facebook page to post your content. You can do that. You do get engagement with it, but it makes it very hard for funders and bigger organizations to tag you and collaborate with you and get involved with that work. Um, and then I will also talk about website or link in bio. You don't necessarily need a website. I know we had a webinar a few weeks back on making a website. Um, you might just want to have a link in bio. And if you want me to go into what that is, we can. But just a central place for all of these links that people can go to and links that are beyond this. So it's your Eventbrite link, your Spotify link, the gallery that you're currently at, that kind of thing. What should I post? You should post, I don't want to say whatever you want, but essentially it is kind of whatever you want, tailored for those audiences. If you're an artist, you probably have finished artwork, you probably have music that you want to share. Like I said before, authenticity is really good. Behind the scenes, work in progress updates. You don't have to jump on every trend that you see, but sometimes jumping on one every once in a while is fun to break up your content. And yeah, personal posts do really well. You want to keep your posting schedule simple but consistent. If you are starting from nothing right now, do not make yourself stick to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Do not do them all. Pick one to two that you feel comfortable with, something that you have used in the past or currently use, and do a few posts a week, maybe to start. If you want to start with one post every 2 weeks, do that. Make it simple and then make it a habit so that you are more likely to keep that schedule rather than get burnt out on all of this new thing and all of these new features and all of these different accounts. Another tip is to batch create your content. Schedule posts in advance, which is super helpful. If we did not do that at Mac, I don't know what I would do. And reuse your content across platforms. Batch creating could be you're going to be in the studio all day. You know that you're going to be working on this painting. How many different videos and photos and things can you get while you're already working on this piece and you're already in that space? Um, and then reusing content. If you've posted a video a few months ago and it didn't perform, or you had, 100 less followers, maybe wait more than a month. Maybe let's say, 6 months. Try posting it again. See if it does any different. If it's still relevant, why not? Let's get into writing your captions. So you want to do a few things here, and it's kind of similar to what I've already highlighted for what you would want to include in a graphic. You want to reiterate what the person is looking at, flesh out whatever it is. If it's a graphic, you want to reiterate what's in the graphic, flesh out what the photo is about. What are people looking at and why it matters? Yes, you can have a hook, but eventually you do want to flesh out what the person is looking at just for, not everyone's going to understand what they're looking at. That's a really key thing. Assume your audience does not know who you are, anything about you. You're just a random person to them, and you're trying to convince them for a few short seconds that you are worthy of their time. Don't love that phrasing, but you get what I mean. You want to make sure that you have a call to action again, whether it's link in bio, watch the video, get tickets. You want your follow through to be easy. You want to make sure that you have working links. If you don't necessarily have a follow through, sometimes you are posting content for engagement for the sake of posting. You can tell people to go to a newsletter, to sign up for an email list, to answer a poll that you have in, Instagram and Facebook, they have polls, um, those kind of functions. You don't necessarily need to have an event going on or a full video that people need to go watch, but do have some kind of action. It could be, write a comment, give us an emoji on what this makes you feel, something like that. Tagging, credit and tag your collaborators. Credit and tag your collaborators. There are many times that we at Mac miss things because people don't tag us. It is really important to tag your funders, tag the venue, tag the studio that you're working at, tag your publisher, tag the artist that you're working with, everything. Tagging is good. Do not spam tag. Do not tag a bunch of, or this is very popular now. I'm not a big fan of it. I know that it works essentially, but don't tag too many organizations that aren't really related to what you're doing. If you're, work an artist working in Mississauga and you have an event coming up, don't tag Hamilton Arts Council. You could, but it just spams those social media admins and they don't, they're not going to do much with that post if it's not relevant to them. And then hashtags are kind of out right now, but to start off, do a few that are relevant to what you're doing. In TikTok, they're usually niche specific, and on Facebook, LinkedIn, typically at Mac, we don't really use them. You can. I don't find that they do much. Um, and a tip. This is a big tip. Social media is not a substitute for email. If you want to guarantee that your post is seen by someone, a funder, a special guest that you want out at the event, or whatever it is, someone that needs to see this work, please send them an email with the link to the social media post or the social media campaign. This is crucial so that they see it. And sometimes just tagging someone on social media is not enough. You might not want me to go to your event. You might want someone else to go to your event. You might not want the social media person to go to that event. So make sure you're sending it to everyone. And once again, if you're in doubt, send it to your main contact at a place, and they will most likely direct that to the right person. Accessibility best practices. So it is important, as I said, to have accessible content, which is why if I go back at some of this, you might think, oh, do I really need to rewrite everything? Do I really need to, outline these things? Are they not obvious? No, no. Don't assume that everything is easy for someone or that someone's looking at your content and seeing it through the same eyes that you are. So a lot of platforms now allow you to have alternative text or alt text. This is descriptive text that will kind of explain what's in your image. I know on Instagram, when you're posting, there's a setting where you can reach it and kind of explain what's in your images. You also want to add captions and audio on screen. These are for your Reels, your TikTok, your YouTube. They do have auto captioning, but sometimes they're not always the most accurate. Sometimes you can go in and change them, sometimes you can't. So if they are burned on your screen, then you don't need to worry about that. Okay, fonts and readability. I already kind of got into this with design. Use clear, legible fonts. Think about where your design is going to be going. If it is on your phone screen, think, oh, okay, well, I'm not sure if this copy is big enough. This text is big enough. Send it to your phone. Take a look. Go, oh, okay, okay. And also assume that that no one is seeing the thing on the same device that you are, right? I have like a smaller phone. Some people have a bigger phone. Um, so think about how your audience is viewing whatever you're making, whether it's a post um, or a design. Left aligned text is best for readability. If you don't know what alignment in that sense means, left align is if this is your edge, your margin, then everything is aligned, so everything is starting from the left. I do have an example after this that will show you kind of different alignment. Color and contrast, as I've mentioned before, use high contrast, so dark on light, light on dark. Avoid putting text over top of images unless there is enough contrast. And you can check color contrast in your work. This is a great resource. You can type in two different hex codes, and it will show you if the contrast is AODA compliant, which is accessibility compliant. Hashtags and emojis. You want to use Pascal case for hashtags so that they are screen readable. This is something that we did not used to do at Mac in the past. We liked the look of having everything be lowercase, but it is not easy for screen readers to read this. They're going to read this as Mississauga Arts. And I wish I had a different example because Mississauga Arts kind of works. Um, but you want to have your hashtag be in this case so that you have a full two words that the screen reader could read. Use your emojis sparingly. Do not use them to replace an actual word, and only use them at the end of the sentence, maybe at the beginning if it's, kind of a link icon or there's a few uses, but really you want to use them sparingly. One at the end of a sentence is usually more than enough. Do not post text-only images with no caption or description. Always include a short summary. This is what we do. Typically at Mac, a lot of the things that are in the graphic are also on the post. It is not repetitive because not everyone, once again, might be seeing that graphic in the same way that you are. Always restate your key info plainly, clearly, so that people know what they are to do with your post. All right, so we're going to get into an example and looking at all of the different design principles and what we need for information and see, where we're at here. So I did want this to be a little bit interactive, but it might not be in terms of timing, but I'll go through it like I'm interacting with you. So for hierarchy, you want the biggest text to be the most important. Do we have that here? Yeah, okay, kind of, but there's also a lot on the screen. Alignment. Is everything kind of keeping the same alignment, or is everything a little bit all over the place and a little bit confusing? I would go with the latter. You have this is center aligned, this is kind of center-ish aligned, center-ish, but also things are on angles. And there is something, if you want to have creative choices, sure, but are your creative choices harming the clarity of your work? And you do not want that to be the case. Contrast. Is everything on here legible? Not necessarily, right? It took me a while when I was looking at this to even notice that this was a check mark and this was an X. Meaning, this is what you would be donating to this recycling day and this isn't. Contrast, sorry, like I was saying, this yellow and this orange, not great. Even this is a little bit odd. Same with gray on orange. There's just a few things, and if you were to, put this into a contrast checker, I don't think a lot of these colors would pass. Spacing as well. Spacing in terms of there's a lot going on. Like I said, everything's kind of bunched up, trying to get as much information on this as possible when you don't necessarily need to. And then fonts, we have one, two, three, four, five, six fonts, I think. This might be the same. No, seven? There are way too many fonts on this. Um, Once again, you can choose a few if you want to be creative, but more than three starts to get, once again, a little messy and chaotic. Um, then in terms of information, yes, you have what it is. I think the who might be kind of cropped out. This might say the organization. But if I was looking at this, I'd kind of get the point. It's a recycling day, sure. But when is this? Drop off free of charge. Well, yeah, I'm recycling. Why would I need to pay? Oh, okay. So you pick up things okay. Like it's not that clear. You don't have the when and the where. Um, all of this information, I'm using my hands and you guys can't see that. All of this information being above this information doesn't necessarily make sense, right? You want people to have the recycling day and then know what they're to do before you give them the list of things that are acceptable and not acceptable. That same thing with the call to action. It's kind of there, but once again, if you don't have the when and where, the call to action is kind of useless. You don't have any contact info or a link to see, if I have a follow-up question for this organization, I have nowhere to go. And in this case, logos or funder credits, they don't have a logo. They might not need a funder on this, but they don't have them anyway. So I'll move on to a better example. I put this together quickly in Canva, so it's not perfect, but it kind of shows you how to clean something up and how having everything on something isn't necessarily the best thing, right? So for this, the hierarchy, once again, recycling day is still the main thing here. I've moved that keep Napier beautiful up here. I did actually some research on this, and essentially the event is called Keep Napier Beautiful Recycling Day. And I thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. Um, but it's not the main focus, right? The recycling day is the focus, and then they have this fun name for their program. I've aligned everything left aligned. It's clean and easy to read. Um, the contrast here is good. We have enough contrast between this gray and this white, this green and this white. Fonts, we're using two in different weights, right? We have a thicker and a thinner, but we're only using two along with this script. And it's a legible script for the most part. If it got any tinier than that, or if it was longer than that, I would say just don't use it at all. And then for information, we do have what now? We have who it's by, right? The city council. We have when, so date, time, location, your call to action. It's kind of two in this one. This is information on it, but it's also a call to action, right? You want to drop off your reusable items, but also giving them a contact or a link and also an action item, right? Visit their website for a list of acceptable items. You've removed all of that huge, huge list that you don't necessarily need to have on this. If this was a poster, let's say, and you wanted to include this on it, right? You would just make this bigger depending on what size you have and include it small on the bottom. But if it's on a digital piece, you don't need to put every single thing. Yes, this is New Zealand. So, and then in terms of logos or funder credits, obviously I didn't take their exact logo, but sometimes your who it is and your logo can be the same thing, right? That's what we do a lot. We have our logo in the bottom right, which is our own logo, and it's who is, running the program. Moving on to what these would look like as kind of a good and a bad example of captions. This is example A, using the first graphic. Come to recycling day, free stuff, hashtag fun, hashtag event, hashtag cool. You know, this you're getting kind of a call to action out, right? You're saying come to recycling day, free stuff. And I mean that's partially true. Essentially you are, this program specifically, you are, donating. you're buying things for a small donation that are recycled. So kind of confusing there. Um, but who's running this, right? If you don't have this image here, who is running this event? Where is it? The whole context of this is completely gone. You have hashtags, but they're not very useful. Fun, event, cool would not get you onto any kind of and anywhere good with the algorithm, right? They're too simple, they're too generic, and they don't really say anything about this actual event, right? It's not recycling, it's not tagging, the location. And same with tags. We're not tagging anyone here. We're not even mentioning ourselves, the organization, in this post. And I mean, you could say that it has a little bit of a personality and a voice, but it's not being clear and also having a voice. So this is a very quickly done, updated version. Recycling Day is back. You have a little recycling emoji. Join Napier City Council on November 2nd from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Anderson Park for annual Recycling Day. You've covered most of like the who, what, where, when in this. This is a little bit more of the what and kind of the why. Drop off reusable items for free, find hidden treasures for a small donation, and help support community beautification projects. So you got, what you're doing at the event, um, if there's a cost involved, which is important to mention too, right? And what it's going towards. And then you have another emoji. So there's only two whole emojis in this. And it's a little link. It's at the beginning, but we'll let that one's not too bad because this written out would probably say something like link. Um, and it says, visit website link for a full list of acceptable items. You do not need to have all of these acceptable items, like I said, on this. If you wanted to, bulk out something, I should maybe bring this back to arts a little bit. If you wanted to include kind of, let's say you have a big event, and you want to include some of the things that are going to be at the event, you can also like have those out as little bullet points, right? But you don't need to mention every single thing in your post. You take people, you grab people in, and then you take them somewhere else. You grab people, and then you have a call to action to take them somewhere else. And then three hashtags that are a little bit more relevant. You're mentioning location, recycling. This is the campaign that you're hashtagging, and sustainable living for those that might be, interested in that kind of thing. And you probably would be if you'd like to attend an event like this. Okay, that's it for most of this. I'm going to give you some resources here for design programs. Where do you design things in? If you're just getting started, highly recommend Canva. It's very easy, very drag and drop. They have an entire resource for learning how to use the software, and it's free. You can also look into Adobe. Adobe is industry standard for graphic design, but you don't necessarily need to use Adobe. There's also CorelDRAW, which I think is the OG Adobe, I think. Inkscape and GIMP, I just looked up honestly for this video because we really do Adobe and Canva mainly, but they are free if you want to look into them. I can't really vouch for how great they are. In terms of getting inspiration, looking at things, it is really crucial and good for you to look at examples of good design to figure out what you want to do with your own posters. So, Pinterest, Behance. Behance is kind of like uh, a deviant art for designers and photographers. It's like portfolio, like the best portfolio work that they have. Dribble is also similar. It's more like projects that they've done. And Designspiration I just found also before this webinar, but it also looked really promising and had some cool things on there. I mainly use Pinterest and Behance when I'm looking up things, and also saving things that I see from other people's social media, whether it's a design that I like or a trend that I like, or you're out in the wild and you see something you like, and you snap a photo of it. You might find that you want to use that later. In terms of social media, so these are all different softwares, this first set, on how you would schedule posts in advance. If you are starting out, I would recommend using Meta Business Suite. It used to be Facebook Business Suite for Facebook and Instagram posting. We at Mac use Hootsuite for everything, but it is paid and it is expensive. So I couldn't really recommend it if you're just starting out. But Facebook Business Suite would cover your Facebook and your Instagram at least. Every other platform does have kind of scheduling built in. Instagram was lagging on that, but Facebook Business Suite has kind of brought that back in for them. Um, so you could go in that route. Hey Orca, I have not used, but I follow their webinars and they just released a personal free version of their software. I'm sure it's probably similar to these, social media softwares where you enter your caption, you have your image that you put in, and then you get a little bit of a preview of what it's going to look like as your finished post. Same thing with Later. I'm not sure if they have a free version, but these are also good resources to find trends. They usually have blog posts with the most recent TikTok and Reel trends that are going on too. So I highly suggest if you're looking to kind of get into this and you want a little bit of ideas on what to post on social media and scheduling posts, look into these. I'm also going to mention, I should probably say this at the end, but LinkedIn Learning is such a great tool. And if you're within Mississauga and you have a Mississauga library card, and I'm sure other libraries are quite similar, you can get LinkedIn Learning for free. They have courses on everything. They probably have a basic course on social media, but you could probably look up, you know, TikTok or Instagram or looking at how do I measure my analytics. Um, Anything like that, I would highly suggest LinkedIn Learning. I would also highly suggest just Googling things. There's a lot of times where I am unsure of a new thing that's come up on Instagram and there's a new feature and I'm like, what the heck is that? Google it. There's so many resources out there, including ones that, Instagram and TikTok and Facebook are posting themselves on their new updates and how they work. Um, and then for accessibility, I mentioned the color contrast. Accessible Social is also really, really good. They have kind of everything that you need to know about making your social media posts as accessible as possible. I watched a webinar with Accessible Social being the feature, and it was so good. So if you have a moment to get into everything that they're doing, that would help out your posts quite a bit. But if you do have more questions after this, feel free to email me at sabrina@macarts.ca. I know Susan put our emails in the chat earlier. But thank you, everyone.